Hello, friends. If you had told me 6 months ago I'd be doing a talk for YouTube about pigeons, I would have said you're probably crazy because for most of my life I have considered pigeons to be just rats with wings. Pretty, but rats with wings. They're such a pestilence in the city because they just shit everywhere. And they really shouldn't be here. But when you start reading up on pigeons and their abilities and what they can do and what they can be used for, they're one of the most amazing birds on the planet. Pigeons are unusually intelligent. They're as smart as dogs, and their brain to body size ratio is the same as great apes. They can look at a photograph and they can determine between two different people in a photograph. They can determine the difference between a painting by Monet and by Picasso. I know a lot of people that can't do that. They can distinguish up to 26 letters of the alphabet. They're really quite smart birds. They don't have the verbal gifts that you would find in parrots, but they have other gifts. They are the only bird that can recognize itself in a mirror. Even parrots and ravens, which are really smart birds, can't do that. They're only one of 6 animals in all of the animal kingdom that can do that. They're incredible navigators. Now, you know, there are a lot of birds that migrate, but when you migrate, you just go back to a general area. Homing pigeons go back to the exact spot. How do they do that? Well, that's what's really amazing. They have many different gifts that they can use at their disposal that they can call upon. First of all, of course, they have sight. They can navigate using landmarks such as rivers and mountains. But let's say those weren't available. They could use the sun. They can tell by the angle of the sun in the sky. They can also navigate by magnetic force. They can feel the force of the North Pole. They can feel the force of the moon. They can tell the difference between the two, and they can use that to navigate. And if all of those things fail, they have an amazing ability that has just recently come to light. They can hear infrasounds, which are unusually low frequency sounds. Sounds down on the frequency where it's like one blip of sound every 20 seconds. I mean, it's amazing. 200 times more ability in this than humans can do. And what this gives them ability to do is almost like a Superman ability. It's really almost supernatural. They can hear the sound of the ocean 1,000 miles away. They can hear the rumbling of the Rockies 2,000 miles away. And they can use these sort of things to navigate by. And okay, if you see a pigeon when they leaves their roost, you see them making circles. Well, they're not just doing this for the fun of it. They are using the Doppler effect to hear the difference between the sounds coming from here and the sounds coming from here, all the way off to those far off places that they're listening to. Isn't that just amazing? That's just amazing. And they just have this teeny little brain that they can do all this stuff. They've also been very useful in communications for thousands of years, all the way back to ancient Rome. The military has been using them. They were so important in ancient Rome that one pigeon sold for the price of a gladiator's salary for a whole year. They were particularly useful during World War I and World War II. And you would say, well, this is after the telegraph. Yes, but they didn't have telegraph wires going out to where these people were out in the field. So the pigeons came in very handy for these people. There is a special exhibit in Bletchley Park in England, which is devoted to singing the praises, shall we say, of the pigeons, what they have done. Quite often these pigeons would get injured in their flight and they would still go through with it. And it was a very precarious job because the Nazis in World War II, they knew about this as a communication device, so they would shoot pigeons down. Many of the hero pigeons came home injured only to be sewn up and go back out again. And they did this repeatedly. There were 250,000 pigeons that were used in World War II. It's a lot. And they would take messages from the front line back to their headquarters where the messages needed to be delivered. When they would arrive home, there would be a little bell that would ring, and so a soldier would retrieve the pigeon and the message that was on it and send it to the higher-ups that needed the message. They also, somebody invented a special type of camera, and they did reconnaissance flights using pigeons in World War II. I'm not making this shit up. There was a pigeon in World War II called Mocker who flew 52 missions without getting injured before he was finally injured. And there was another one, Cherami, that lost a foot and an eye, and he saved 250 soldiers' lives that had gotten behind enemy lines. There was one pigeon called G.I. Joe that saved 1,000 British soldiers that were trapped in an Italian city that was getting ready to be bombed. And they were able to get the message back to the headquarters, and they were spared. In 1946, G.I. Joe was awarded a medal, and there were over 36 medals given out to pigeons in World War II for extra service. Pigeons actually had special devices where they could be put into like a harness type thing, and they could be parachuted down to where the soldiers needed them. Before these wars, back in the 19th century, the fabulous banker family, the Rothschilds, employed pigeons to keep up to date on the latest stock market information. And they used this, so they made millions and millions of dollars because nobody else had such a fast network. Nowadays, most pigeons are used in racing. And why would they be used in racing? Well, because they are extraordinary flyers. Pigeons can fly at 60 miles an hour for 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day and cover 500 to 700 miles in a day. They can fly up to 80 miles per hour. They're amazing. And some of the pigeons have been particularly bred for specific type of flying, and some of them have become very expensive. Of course, there's usually bedding that goes along with it. They have a lot of pigeon racing in America. I'm not familiar with if there's bedding here, but there's a big bedding on it in Asia. In Asia, it's a big deal. You know, you can have a lot of land in America and raise horses, but in a lot of places in the world, you can't have that type of land. But if you have a little coop in the backyard, bingo, you can raise pigeons and they can make you money. They have sold in China for as much as $1,900,000 at auction. And quite frequently, pigeons will sell for between $100,000 and $300,000 at auction because they're so useful in these races. They're amazing animals. So the next time you're walking on a city street and you see these pretty little birds that are cuckooing and you think that they're just trash birds, realize that these are actually very extraordinary creatures with unusual gifts that we can't even come close to touching as far as what they can do. And I hope that you will appreciate pigeons more in the future. Thank you very much.